I'm gonna take a quick moment just to ask everybody a favor. You know, we're going through this coach, this 38RW. Please like, subscribe, comment on my videos, whatever social media platform this may be that you're watching this on. I mean, obviously YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it may be. You know, I do these videos to help people. You know, I enjoy this business in the RV world, but I also just enjoy motorhoming myself with my family. And so if this helps people, that makes my day. So please, you know, show me that and send me a comment or two, and just, you know, let me know if there's something I need to cover too, and I'll see what I can do. Hi, my name's Kyle Carberline, and I'm a truck and RV sales professional at Bluegrass International Trucks, Buses, RVs, and Ideal Lease. Today, I'm standing in front of a 2023 Renegade Valencia 38RW. It's the rear wardrobe. This is in the throttle exterior color. Of course, on all the Renegades, it's a full automotive paint clear coat process. And in the interior is the ash fill, so you'll see that here when we go inside. But I'll do a walk around the coach. Sad to say, so this coach just came in. It's not been washed, so I do apologize. I wanted to get a video of it. This is a sold unit, and I think the owner, he was kind of hoping I would do a video too, just doing a walk around of his coach so that people can get familiar with the Valencia for those that are shopping or already own one. So let's go, let's look at this unit. So on the 2023 Renegade Valencia, they now have the new updated cap, the cab over bunk. It's got the automotive glass in it, very similar to what's on the Verona. You can see a Verona back there in the left in the background. I mean, sharp. They did a heck of a job updating the Valencia. It's on the Freightliner S2 chassis, custom chassis for RV specific use. It's the Cummins B 6.7, 360 horsepower, 800 foot-pounds of torque. Backed by the Allison 3000 series transmission. As we walk around the coach, you can see that we've got side view cameras mounted on the fender. You've got Bridgestone tires. Those are true truck tires. So I always tell people when you're driving your motorhome and you need service tires, any kind of work like that, I mean, look at it as a truck. Reach out to your truck service centers, truck mobile maintenance guys. They're going to be able to take a lot better care of you if you have needs out there on the road. Of course, you don't have the fuel tanks up front on the S2 chassis. It's a sandwich 100-gallon tank in the rear. I will show you that on the other side. But yeah, that new cap is beautiful. You got your Girard awning. For 2023, we updated the dual pane windows. We also updated to the Truma AquaGo Plus instant hot water heater. So it's an unlimited supply of hot water. You have easy access into that bay. You've got, let's see if I can lift this off here. You've got your power switch for on and off, and there's a, and of course you've got a place here. Obviously do not do this under pressure, but for winterization you can easily drain your coach here. That's stuff I can show you during a walk around and demonstrate if necessary. But an easy system to maintain and operate, and extreme. You know, I actually have this hot water heater on my motorhome, and I've not had a lot of issues with it. Well, I've just had one, and I think that was just because I had super low pressure at a campground down in Florida in the Keys. Of course, your storage bays are custom built, still in-house. They are powder coated, carpeted lined, dual latch points. They close and seal extremely well. On the 38RW, your inverter is located up here in the front. It's a 3,000 watt hybrid inverter. Of course, you have an exterior TV. I don't know. I don't think I got the keys on me. We'll come back to the TV. Most of your bays that are on the campsite of the coach are going to be open with nothing in them. That just makes it, you know, you're going to be camping on this side. So like when you've got grills and stuff stored, it's just a lot more convenient to get to those items. That hose is an air line that's supplied by Renegade. You've got an air fitting in the battery box, which allows you to use chassis air to air up tires, pool, inflatables, and some other things. You're not going to be able to run like any sizable air tools, just not enough flow. You'll get a, you know, like an impact, you know, you'll get a dirt, and then it'll have to build air again. Those are your slide locks. Those are things I talked to you about in person. Another one of your storage bays. I think it's been a couple years now. Renegade now cuts that bay underneath the rail just to give you a little bit deeper pocket for larger chairs, tables, or other items. It's, you know, just a little bit more space. It does make a big difference. Customers are really like that. Another storage bay on the campsite, and that is your quick connect for your. That's an option from Renegade. That's your LP quick connect for an external grill. That propane fitting there, that's a low pressure outlet on propane. I can have a long conversation with people about propane if they want to know, but you don't want to send high pressure propane over long distances because you have chances of oil settling in your lines and causing blockage. So that's why when you go to hook up like your Blackstone grills or just propane grills in general, there's usually a special line that you order from that company that does not have a regulator in it, because if you put another regulated on top of regulated propane, well, you end up, it won't hardly stay lit. So, but those are things I can talk more about in person. We could have a whole, maybe I should just make a video about propane and how it's regulated and kind of what to be aware of. But plenty of storage in that bay. Another full storage bay on the campsite. On the 38RW, you have a slide in the bedroom that is on a Swintech slide system. You might read a few bad things about Swintech slides, and that is because people use the Swintech slide systems on too big of slides or too heavy of slides, and that system was just never designed for that. But the Swintech slide system is extremely reliable if used on a proper size slide in the right application. So like in that case, that's just a slide that bumps out and has kind of some cabinetry in it, but not really in a substantial weight, and just gives you a little bit more room in the bedroom. We'll walk our way across the back here. It's a 12,000 pound hitch. That outlet on that exhaust pipe there is for your 8,000 kW diesel generator by Cummins. This is the updated rear cap that Renegade now has for Valencia for 2023. That's a 7-way plug for your trailer. Renegade has done a beautiful job of updating these for 23. The new, that mud flap across the rear, that is the new option for 2023 as well. That gray, like I said, this thing just rolled in yesterday afternoon, and I wanted to try to get a video in before we started prepping the unit and getting it delivered. But the gray material down there, that's actually a stainless. That's just protective film during transit so that nothing happens to it. That way it's nice and shiny at pickup. Up here, you've got your 35,000 BTU Suburban propane heater for the coach. You've got some decent storage here as well. This is where your 50 amp shore, it's where your 50 amp cord is for shore power, and then of course your transfer switch, which is surge protected. We can also have another conversation about surge protection and guards. Some people like to stack another surge guard on top of that, just because if that gets blown, it does save the appliances in your coach, but then you're without power. Whereas if you have an additional surge guard like at the post, in theory, you know, you push that to the side on a temporary basis, and now you use that surge guard. It's one way or another. If you already own one because you've owned motorhomes in the past, I'd probably use the extra one you have. Maybe not 100% necessary to buy a second one. You know, those are things we can talk about, and you kind of weigh in. You can weigh out your pros and cons. Here's your 8,000 watt generator. Very quiet. You know, the floor is so well insulated. You know, it's a 9-inch floor. And so you've got 3-inch channel steel, you've got 2-inch beams in there, you've got double stacked 2L floors, home grade insulation, which is a wool material, so it's high sound deadening, 3/4-inch plywood, and that absorbs a lot of sound. So it's very quiet inside the coach, and it's also very quiet outside the coach. And then right above that, you've got your fill for your 100-gallon diesel tank. The def tank on this, which we'll show the fill up front, is 10-gallon. That's your exhaust tip down there for your main diesel chassis engine, which is that Cummins ISB. I take that back. Don't listen to me. It's no longer called the ISB. The new is the B6.7. They changed the nomenclatures just to distinguish between emission years. Here in the control bay for this Valencia, you've got the new C level 2 tank monitoring system, which is supposed to be a lot more accurate. Your external water filter. You've got low point drains. Your valve change so that you can either do tank fill or run off city water. Your cable for cable TV. Your black tank flush. Of course, this is your reel for filling your freshwater tank, and then you've got a black tank dump and a gray tank dump. And anytime we put water in the coaches, we run it through an external filter at the source, just so that we know we're not putting any contaminants in your coach or even in your hose. And then down here you've got your standard stinky slinky that Renegade, your sewer hose that Renegade provides to you guys. And then that blue line down there was just a garden hose to hook up to the drain point, or one of those spigots down there. You can see the C level 2 sensor. You've got that's your only place where you hook up a sewer hose so that you can drain your sewer gray and your black tank. Your gray tank is 75 gallon, your black tank is 75 gallon. You've got a little port here that screws out, so you can unscrew that port before you take this cap off, because I don't care what motorhome it is, you know, they're notorious for water getting in there, or little seepage through the gates. That way when you take it off, it's not dumping inside of the bay of your coach. It just kind of dribbles on the ground a little bit, and you can use a hose to rinse that down. And then you've got another port that screws out over here, so you can run your hose across and then down to the ground and then over to your sewer dump. Those tanks are heated. They've got pad heaters on them. Once again, please excuse my dirt. Another one of your tanks. I'm going to show you guys a common issue. It's just nature of the beast. No different than when you buy a brand new bicycle. If you're a bicyclist out there, you know, cables stretch and they need to be adjusted over time. This is one of your cables here that goes into this pin. So when I push this pin in, that gate is closed. If I pull this pin out, my gate is open. Well, this cable will stretch some over time, and there's a little set screw. I'm actually doing pretty good today, remembering all my stuff here. So this little set screw, you can back it out, and then you can back this cable up just a hair and then tighten it back up, because sometimes it'll get to where it doesn't close, like it'll close 99% of the way but not 100. So over a course of a day or two, you get a little bit of seepage into the pipe, and then of course it runs out when you take that cap off. Well, after some time, 6 months, a year, or whatever it takes, you know, you can back that back screw, pull that cable back, reset it in there, and then when you go to push it closed at the gate on your control bay, you're getting a better seal. It's nothing that Renegade did wrong. It's just kind of some basic maintenance. A lot easier to do that if you're hooked up to sewer when you're trying to find out what the adjustment needs to be. That's your 20-gallon propane tank, 84 pounds. It's quite a bit of propane. You know, you've got a residential refrigerator, so you're not using propane on the fridge. So you're only using propane for heat and for your stove. You know, depending on how much you cook inside and what climate you're camping in, I mean, you may not use a ton of propane throughout the season. But if you're a ski bum, I mean, you're going to use a little bit more propane. But if you're hooked, you know, there's lots of tips and tricks, which I go over when I do a delivery to a customer. I mean, if you're at a really nice RV park and, you know, you got full hookup for electric and 50 amp, I mean, sit your little space heater on the counter, and that'll help, you know, keep the temperature up in the coach and use a lot less propane. You're trying to keep the thing heated. Just little things like that, because these coaches are so well insulated. So I mean, they'll hold the temperature once you get them there. Of course, your battery bay. On the right-hand side here, we've got the coach battery. That's the new AGM. That's the standard battery. So there is a lithium option. It's easy peasy to upgrade to lithium if you find a coach that you want to have lithium. You know, lithium is definitely great for those people that do a lot more boondocking, the racetracks, places where you just don't necessarily want to run your generator a lot or even hardly at all. You know, if you're national park people, I mean, you just can't run a generator from 8 to 8 most of the time. And then, you know, just depending. But, you know, if you're going to be hooked up to shore power and driving from one nice resort to the other, you know, lithium is not near the advantage. But that is the new standard option AGM, which is 330 amp hours. I think the old version last year was 260 amp hours. And then the lithium package is 3 100 amp hour batteries. But there's a whole nother conversation about batteries. Even though the amp hours on this one is higher, the depth of discharge is less on an AGM, so you actually get more bang for your buck on a lithium because you can discharge them farther and they'll recharge faster. that's a whole nother long. People will text me about batteries, and I'm like, hold on a minute, I just need to call you and we'll talk through it. Back there in that back left-hand corner is where your air hookup is. Here, I'll point to it right here. This is your air hookup, and that's so that you can get off the air chuck to inflate tires, pull toys, or whatever you may need to do. And then you got some battery disconnects down here, which is for your main chassis. That one's for the main chassis. You've got a battery disconnect switch that's up there inside the coach itself for the coach. And then you got your steps. You do have a block heater if you're going to be in colder climates, 15 degrees or less, or extended periods of time. And then, of course, there's your DEF fill, which is a 10-gallon tank, like I said before. The key on the DEF is when you fill this, keep it clean, because DEF is highly corrosive. It crystallizes, so if you spill it all over the place, you'll get this mound of white crusty crystals. That can technically get down the tank and cause issues if it's pulled in one of the injectors. So you just want to keep this clean. Anytime I do DEF, and if I spill, like I go to pull the nozzle out because I'm pumping DEF at a pump versus a bottle, and it keeps on spurting it out a little bit, I'll grab a bottle and put a little bit of water in it and just kind of splash it off, just so I don't have any buildup of crystals or anything. And it's pretty easy to keep clean, but that's just something you want to be aware of. You do have a larger slide in the living room on the driver's side, or the non-camp side, utility side. Like I said, all dual pane windows, and that'll come out, and that is on a rack and pinion system, so that's a much more sturdier slide mechanism for that larger slide. There's a motor that's midship underneath. It's a 3/4 inch socket if you ever have to manually crank it in. I have yet to hear of anybody that has to have had to do that. Just keep in mind, it is geared super low, so it is something that's going to take a ton of time. I did it one day just for fun, just to see what it would take. And the ideal tool is a gear wrench, and so you can sit there and you can just like crank, and your buddy's out there going like, I don't know if it's moving, and then it's like, oh, it moves. So it does take a lot of cranking to get it to move that way, but it can be done. On the Swintex slide, there's up on the flaps, which when I do delivery, I explain this to people, just some worst case scenarios, they just know. But you push the flap back, you can push the gear up out of that track, and then a couple people can push that slide in and then use your slide locks to hold it in. Once again, I do not hear hardly any things about that, but those are things people should know, because you could be somewhere and you don't want to be stranded because you can't get a slide in. So it's good to know for that one time, or in 20 years that it might happen that a slide doesn't want to come in for whatever reason. We'll talk about the construction real quick on the outside. So, when you're buying a Renegade, by far, the number one thing that you're buying is the box. There's a lot of other brands. I don't want to name brands, but brand D out there, they're notorious for building a very cheap box. And some other brands build very cheap boxes, and then they put a lot of amenities. So they'll put the nicer aqua-hot systems, a fireplace, LED light shows and waterfalls, and I'm getting a little exaggerated here. But they'll put all that stuff on there to kind of attract your attention, but they built it on a cheap box, and until you own the coach, those are things you don't really appreciate, like driving down the road, or just the lifespan of that coach and how well it holds up. So like on the wall structure for Renegade, let's go back over here to the coach door. It's a 2-inch vacuum bonded aluminum welded tube structure wall. It's a high density closed cell foam that's in between. And then there's some other manufacturers that kind of can say some stuff similar to that, but that fiberglass on the exterior is about as thick as a piece of paper, whereas on a Renegade it's thicker than a quarter. So just that durability. So on the thinner fiberglasses from some of the other manufacturers, they require that they have to put a backer on that fiberglass. So now you got something else that can delaminate. So when we look at a Renegade, we'll open up the coach door here. This is the bottom of the floor. So most manufacturers, when they build a coach, they usually sit the wall on top of the floor, or they bolt it against the side of the floor. Well, if you bolt a floor, this is our wall. You bolt our wall on top of the floor and you're driving down the road, you got this issue over the years. If you bolt the wall, so I hope I'm not confused here, but you bolt the wall to the side of the floor, now you got gravity sag issues as you're bouncing up and down the road. Well, Renegade has 9 inches of real estate So that wall is bolted and glued to that floor. They got a steel channel that sticks out, and that wall sits on top of that channel as well. So the wall is supported in both directions. And just clearly, you know, you've got that 9 inches. So you got, you know, some floors 2-3 inches. So you'd only have this small amount of space that the floor would be attached to. Whereas on a Renegade, see if I can make this demonstration here. This is the top of my floor, which is 3/4 inch plywood on the inside. And then if you go, so I'm out here, you go all the way down here, and that's the bottom of my floor. So you got all that real estate and structure in that coach. And I tell people, instead of my sales pitch or me trying to tell you what's best in the world, drive other brands you're interested in looking at, come drive a Renegade. You see for yourself the difference is night and day. Or go to a plant tour. That's another way to be wowed by the Renegade product. I went there inside and grabbed my keys real quick. This is the exterior entertainment center with the TV. Love the fact that last year Renegade went to the sound bars over the radio unit with the 2 automotive speakers. This just is a lot cleaner, a lot more functional. The sound bars sound great. If down the road they come up with some even better sound bar, or you want a certain particular sound bar, it's easily switched out. You know, you're not having to find all these components that match size and fit and all that kind of stuff. It's just mounting another sound bar on a bracket. You got a USB back here for your cell phone if you're using it for like your Bluetooth on your speaker, listen to music. That vent up there is for the back of your microwave, so that's what your exhaust is, like when you're cooking inside in the rig. There's those little tabs up there, which you know, during delivery I can show, but you got little tabs that actually will, it locks, snaps closed and stays snap closed, so you don't get bugs or mud daubers or stuff inside the coach. So if you do plan on cooking, you know, you need to come out here and unclip those so that the exhaust can blow out. If it's not clipped and you're driving down the road, that's like one thing you might hear, like tapping, and it's just a matter of going. It's not easy to reach, I'm not gonna lie. But, you know, in case you need it on your roof, I definitely recommend a collapsible ladder anyways that you keep in your coach, and then that's no problem. So you just need to have a small ladder with you. This is actually, we're gonna go into the coach here. This is actually one of my favorite features about this coach, sadly. I have a small motorhome. It's having a place to put your shoes. So the way they undercut these steps is so nice, because as soon as you step up onto your entry step, that comes out, you can easily slide off your shoes and slide them up underneath the step, and they're out of the way. You don't have to trip over them or anything like that. That's an awesome feature. It's sad for me, but it's like little things, like where the heck did I put my shoes? Right here to the left, you know, we've got our battery disconnect switch, which is for the coach, which is all powered to the coach for all your lights and everything that works. Step override, you know, this is what you use, that when you open and closing the coach door, that the step doesn't just go in and out, in and out, in and out. And then you've got your e-start, and the e-start switch is what ties your coach batteries and your chassis batteries together. So say if your coach batteries, you accidentally let them go dead in one way or another, you can tie the 2 battery systems together and use the chassis batteries to get your generator started, or vice versa to get your main engine started. And of course, by law, a lovely fire extinguisher. All the Renegades are equipped with multiplex wiring. So what's nice about that, and the way to look at all your control panels throughout the coach, is they're more or less remotes. You know, in theory, I could pull this off the wall and carry it around like a remote and power, use stuff on the coach that's been programmed to this. The reason they do that is because it allows you to control multiple parts of the coach from multiple locations. So, for example, I can hit interior all on, and every light on the coach comes on. And I can do that from the bedroom and from the main control panels, the one that's there by the fridge, the one that's back there by the bathroom. And then, of course, what's nicer than anything is, you're going to go out for a hike for the day or off to the races or whatever it may be that you're into. Instead of having to go back to the back of the coach and flip off a bunch of different switches to turn all my lights off, I can easily, as I walk out, hit all off and all my lights are off. That green light, when you see it, that's telling you that it does see a successful signal. Most of these are hardwired for 12 volt. There may be a few, depending on floor plan, that have a battery in them. And then, so basically all these control panels that are throughout the coach. So you've got one there. Let's see, you've got one up here on the cab over bunk. You've got one over here by the dinette. You know, everything that's forward of this main control panel here, they are tied to this control panel. And then the other main control panel here in the back, you know, all the switches that are back here, like the one in the bathroom and the one up above the bed, and then the one on the wall back here, are all tied to this one here. What Renegade ran into, and I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, is that a lot of the coaches had one control panel and all the switches went to this. Well, what Renegade quickly learned, depending on floor plan and the location of the refrigerator was causing interference with radio frequencies. So they solved that problem by splitting up the main control panels into 2 units and do 2 different locations in the coach. One on one side of the fridge and one that's located on the far side of the fridge. It made them a lot more. It wasn't that they didn't work at all. They were like intermittent. I will never forget the first time I had a customer here and that was an issue, because I racked my brain crazy, because we would go, the customer stayed the night here and I went out there and like everything works. And then the customer's like, last night my stuff wasn't working. And I'm like out there, well then it's working, you know. So ultimately with a lot of work and talking to Renegade, we were able to find out, and we were actually to stick some insulation back in here and block that interference. Everything started working a lot better. So then this is their now permanent solution, which is awesome. So we'll head back up towards the front here. You've got a TV, or you know, your main TV with a sound bar over the coach door, and then you've got your cab over bunk with your automotive glass. That blind is on an electric motor and rolls up and down. You got a little cubby up here. This is a sliding bed platform. It slides out. That mattress flips over. You've got a ladder. This was equipped, you know, this is an option. The entertainment and the TV up here is an option that is supplied by Renegade. We do recommend it when you order a coach. It's just a lot easier to do it from the factory than to try to add it later if you ever want it. Of course, this is the new Asheville interior, the cream countertops. It's all personal preference, but I'm a huge fan of the lighter colors in the coaches. It just makes them a lot brighter. And right now we're actually in the coach with it closed up, because I'll do a little bit of video with it closed up, and then I actually might finish this video tomorrow, but then we'll do a little bit of video with it opened up, just so because one of the cool things about Renegade, they're so usable closed up. I mean, if you look, this is not a super wide angle lens camera. I don't know what the exact field of view is, but it's not stretched like a 180 like a GoPro. So I mean, this is a very accurate representation of kind of how much space you got to work with as far as moving through the coach when you're traveling down the road. And then here you've got, this is an option. This is the theater seating from Renegade, so the 2 recliners. And then of course you've got your dinette back there. The dinette does make a bed. The table just slides straight down. The bed's roughly 3 foot by 5 foot, so definitely for your shorter little friends, your children, grandchildren, or somebody that wants to sleep cockeyed or just doesn't care, just depending on what you're trying to do. Even though this has got the theater seats in it versus a jackknife couch that makes a queen size bed, you still got quite a bit of sleeping space, because you've got your mini king in the rear, and then you've got this bed up here which would easily sleep 2 as well. So I mean, this coach would sleep 4 people easily. At that point, I mean, it just depends. It just depends on what your needs are. You know, we deal with all kinds when it comes to, who we're selling coaches to and what their needs are. It's a single basin sink. It's maple wood cabinetry. It's another thing that you can be very proud of with a Renegade, is the quality of the craftsmanship on all the cabinetry. One thing to note on all the cabinetry is all these cabinets are not made and then shipped over to Renegade and then like picked up off of inventory and thrown into a coach. Every single coach is measured for its cabinetry, so that if there is, there could be little variations in the boxes. I mean, it may be 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch during construction, so then each coach is individually measured for its cabinetry, so you get a nice tight fit. Cool thing to know. Of course, you've got cabinetry down here. You've got a little waste bin. People have asked for that for years, to have a place to do trash. All your drawers are soft close. Of course, your gas cooktop. your high point convection microwave, so it bakes and microwaves. And then above that, you've got the entertainment center for the TV over the coach door. So you've got a Blu-ray player. That's where your satellite box would go. That's where your control for your over-the-air TV. That's where you turn on your WineGuard. This has the optional WineGuard internet system on it. So that's where the power on and off is. This is your WineGuard control right here. You'd think they'd do a little better job of kind of making it obvious. But this is power to over-the-air TV. So if that's lit up green, that means you're getting power from over the air, which means cable TV would not work. You got to have that off for cable TV to work. And then this is for your Wi-Fi to turn it on. And then you've got connections if there's gaming consoles or whatever else you may want to add to the coach to play to the TV, depending on what you need. Up here above the theater seating, we've got some nice cabinetry as far as storage. That's the extra cushion that you need, that when you turn the dinette into a bed, you got to put that extra cushion there to get a full bed with, you know, all the space filled. And then both of these down here drawers, these slide out, and then the other two cushions you need, one in there and one over there to make this into a bed. I tell people most people don't make this into a bed, and so I just tell them to leave those cushions in a, you know, covered up or in a bin at home, and now you have more drawer space. You have a residential refrigerator with a freezer, ice maker, up here in the very top. If you look there in the back, this is a cabinet space above the refrigerator. That's your water shut off back there for the ice maker. And then this is your residential refrigerator part as far as the cooling for your normal items. What's really nice about a residential refrigerator, refrigerators have gotten so energy efficient. You know, it's easy to use batteries and inverters to run a fridge when necessary. And of course, this unit's equipped with an 8,000 watt generator that's also set up for auto gen start. So I show customers that I can kind of go over it in the Firefly system, but you can program the generator to automatically so if you're at a race or somewhere where you're off the grid and you're going to be gone for the day and the fridge draws the batteries down or something else draws the batteries down, you can actually program the generator to automatically fire up and charge the battery system and then even shut back down. And then you can do the same thing for HVAC too. So if you've got a pet left behind because you went out to dinner, you know, you can have the coach fire up to cool down so that it doesn't get too hot. One of the advantages also to a residential refrigerator is any of your appliance repair people can work on them if you ever have an issue down the road. And then another thing too is the dual fuel refrigerators require more components. So if you'll notice, a dual fuel fridge is shallower, so you have a lot less space as far as for food and whatnot. So it's nice that you have that deeper fridge to have more stuff in the fridge. And then this has a really nice fridge lock so that when you're driving down the road in transit, you know, your door doesn't come open. I think we talked about most of the stuff in the front. Oh, the coach is equipped with two 15,000 BTU heat pumps. It does have it has a condensation pump. Sorry, I was struggling. I wasn't quite prepared for this. Wasn't in the right state of mind for this video today, but I really needed to push it out, so I'm trying my best here. But it has a condensation pump, and so instead of the condensation from the HVAC units running down the side of your coach and causing streaking on your paint and ruining your beautiful coach as far as just the shininess and glamour, there's actual PEX lines that pump the condensation through the wall, through the ceiling, down the walls, and actually down underneath the middle of the coach, so you don't get any water runoff from condensation on the top of the coach. So you've got a 15,000 BTU heat pump there, and you've got a 15,000 BTU heat pump in the rear. They do work for heat. I mean, like I said, if you're hooked up to electric, I'd probably set a space heater on the counter so you can conserve propane or use propane. Propane is a luxurious heat. I mean, there's advantages to not having propane, but by far one of the biggest advantages to having propane is the fact that it is a very comfortable, dry heat that people love. Renegade does a fantastic job of providing an owner's manual. They do a really good job of laying it out as far as just being able to look through all your systems, who manufactured it, what's the model number, and even what the serial number is. So if down the road you have an issue, if the coach is out of warranty, don't hesitate to see if the actual component has its own manufacturer's warranty. So your fridge, your radios, or anything of that nature, you can easily check because everything is listed here. And then they break down all your owner's manual books for your TV, your appliances, and then your other systems. So this is an awesome tool that Renegade puts together as far as ownership on the coach. And then in this bag, you've got a lot more of the books and stuff pertaining only to the chassis. Less stuff that you'll be involved in and more dealer side. But you have stuff there if you want to read up on it. So we'll go through the Firefly system real quick. So right now we're on the home screen. On the home screen, you've got your light master, so light on, off and on, so the whole coach. And then you've got the temperature on the front and the temperature on the rear. There is sensors which are located throughout the coach that monitor what the temperature inside the coach is. And then you've got your fresh tank level, gray tank level, black tank level, LP level for your propane. There's your tank heaters for heating your gray tank. Like I said, gray tank and black tank, so they're 75-gallon each. There's the button for turning on your water pump. There's the current voltage of your house, the current voltage of your chassis. Those are numbers you just kind of monitor and be aware of, but they're not super accurate because there's always something drawing on it, and so that's going to fluctuate the voltage a little. The only way to get a true voltage read on a battery is to disconnect everything from a battery and then put a voltmeter on it. You can start and stop your generator from here. You can see how many hours are on the generator, and then of course you've got disabling and enabling your auto gen start. So then we go into the light control. All the lights with up and down arrows means that it is a dimmable light, so you can dim it up and down. You've also got your exterior lights on here. Here's all your electrical. Power source right now is inverter because we are not hooked up to anything at this time. I'm out on the lot. And then if you were hooked up to shore power or running generator, you've got line 1 and line 2. So on a 50 amp for an RV, you more or less have two 110 lines coming in. Actually, it's 120 volts. But it would show you how many volts are coming in from each line. So, because I've been places, or even at home, I had my surge guard out there that was blinking, the different voltages and the hertz and all that kind of stuff. And I walked by one day and looked over, and it's like, why is the voltage out here, my plug-in for my RV, reading 145? Well, I called power company. They actually had an issue, and that can damage appliances in your house or your motorhome. Of course, your status of a transfer switch, generator on and off. And then on the power source, if you're hooked up to shore power and you're using a dog bone to reduce it to 30 amp or 15 amp, the coach can't tell the difference other than it knows it's not hooked up to a 50 amp. So it'll automatically divert to a 15 amp just to protect the coach. But for some reason you're hooked up to a 30 amp, you can manually tell it I'm on a 30 amp, and that'll actually free up to be able to use one of your HVAC units. On a 15 amp, it'll cut them all out so that you don't overload the circuits. Of course, it just shows you breaker box, inverter, charger, kind of where all your power is coming and going from. Inverter is currently abled, and we're not taking a charge right now because we're not hooked up to anything that can give the coach a charge. This would not show the status of your solar panels. That's kind of a separate system because it's on such a small scale as far as the number of amps that are coming in. HES settings, so you can enable and disable auto gen start from here. And then so on auto gen start you have triggers, which you have two. You got the voltage as a trigger, HVAC load as a trigger. And then of course you've got quiet time, and you've got quiet time start, quiet time stop. So if I'm in a national park, you can't run a generator from 8 to 8. My quiet time starts at 8 p.m. and my quiet time starts at 8 a.m. That means the generator, no matter what, will not run during those hours. And then you've got programs for at what voltage does it automatically fire up to start charging the system. It has to read that voltage from 160 seconds because, like I said, voltage will vary based on load, so you don't get a super accurate reading. It's just kind of like an average. And then when it hits, based on the type of battery that's on the coach, this would change if it was a lithium, but with an AGM battery at 14.5 volts, it'll stop charging the batteries. Once it reaches those volts, it'll stop at 30 minutes. and then of course a minimum run time. You don't want to just fire a generator up and shut it right back down. That's not good on a generator. So if it does fire up, it'll at least run for 30 minutes, and it won't run any longer than 270. I can't imagine a reason for a coach to run more than 270 minutes nonstop unless something's broke, because I mean the coach should cool down within that time frame, or the battery should fully charge in that time frame. And then you got the number of times the generator will try to restart. Perfect example of why you have that. The generator has no idea how much diesel is in your tank. So if it's trying to suck fuel and it's dry, because it'll only draw your fuel tank down to a quarter tank. There's basically a tube that goes down the tank and just doesn't make it all the way to the bottom. And so once that fuel level drops below that tube, it can no longer pick up fuel. So once it tries to crank over 4 times, it'll no longer try, because I mean it'll just sit there and crank all day long because it's not pulling any fuel. And this is stuff people are always welcome to reach out to me. Like if you own an RV or Renegade, you didn't buy it from me, but you like, you know what, this guy knows a few things, I'd like to ask him a question, please feel free to reach out to me. Of course, your HVAC controls, you've got a front system and a rear system. Of course, you got cool and heat pump for dual zone front and rear. You've only got the one furnace, and then there's your AquaGo on and off for your hot water. Slide controls, so front slide, the window shade in the front. You know, here's your leveling system for leveling the coach. Rear slide, awning, and then let's go down to settings. Obviously, for quiet time for the generator, your time needs to be set correctly. And then the other thing here, there's some diagnostic stuff here, like for a technician if they're working on things in dimmer. But the biggest thing here is if you go to the mobile app button, there's the QR code that you can scan to put the app on your phone, and then there's your ID and your PIN, which you can change. But literally, everything I showed you in this is 100% duplicated on an Android or Apple app. So you can stand outside your coach and drop jacks. If you're one that likes to install like the snap pads, you literally can lay underneath the coach with the snap pad and your Dawn dish soap, lubing it up, and sit there with your phone and lower that jack down on that pad till it snaps in place. You know, if you're outside and you've got a tree that's close to where you're putting your slide out, you can stand out there and run your slide out, and so you make sure you don't hit the tree. So that's super awesome. You can only connect one device to the Firefly system at a time. So we're back in this 38RW. It's a new day. I didn't quite get my video finished yesterday, but I have the coach. The slides are open front and rear, and so you can kind of see the overall space in the coach and how much space you got to work with. I do not like to use a wide angle lens because that kind of gives a poor representation of how much space you have to use inside the coach. But we'll walk back through here. You've got your toilet. You've got your button for eco and normal, numbers 1 and 2, and of course empty. You've got a shower lock right here. Here is your shower. You got plenty of space. The new shower design, so that you can move it up and down on this bar for the different height of people. Of course, you've got a skylight right above the shower, an exhaust fan for pulling air out of the coach, and of course moisture if you're taking a nice hot shower. One of the things that's really nice that Renegade does is there is an access panel at the bottom of the shower, so annually when you're inspecting your roof and some other systems on the coach, you can pull that plate off and make sure that the plumbing under the coach still looks solid and you don't have any water issues. You know, coaches drive down the road and shake and rattle and everything else. So it's just the nature of the beast. There's going to be maintenance over the lifespan of a coach and things that need to be checked on, like the roof and whatnot. So, you know, definitely do your part in keeping on the important different parts and aspects of your coach. We'll go back here into the bedroom. So this is the RW, which is the rear wardrobe. You've got drawers. We'll show the example of how deep these drawers are. There's one right there. All drawers are soft close. You've got cabinetry. You've got a cabinet up here as well. Counter space. A TV above the window. The The window below the TV is an emergency exit, so that lifts. These levers lift up, window pushes out. You've got storage underneath this bench. It's right here below the window. Of course, you've got a washer and dryer. It is two separate units. It is not a combination unit. I don't have a ton of washer and dryer experience in the motorhome world, but what I have heard from lots of people is those combination units for washer and dryer, they do not do the best job drying. So you get a much more efficient setup by having a separate washer and a separate dryer. Plus you can wash clothes and dry clothes at the same time versus having, you're doing twice the work. You can see a little bit of moisture in the door there. We're working on this coach today and getting it prepped for the customer. Just so we literally, when we PDI unit, we spend pretty much a whole day going over it to make sure every single system works like it should, so that when our customers take their coaches out for the first joyride, everything works. It's a very important step that a lot of dealers, well, not a lot, there's definitely some dealers that don't do as good of a job as others. We've got good people that work here. That helps me out a lot. Got cabinetry up here above the bed. This is a mini king. It is 4 inches shorter than your standard king. That's pretty standard in the RV world, just because you got to have room for the slides to come in. Touch panel up here right above you, where you can turn all your lights off and even start and stop your generator if need be. Of course, you got a mirror all the way across the back. And then the wardrobe, the main event. You have tons of clothing space in this coach for all your evening attire and dresses and suits and tuxedos. Just kidding. My plaid shirts and outdoor jackets and blue jeans. Maybe a sport coat. Of course, you've got cabinetry up above, which is pretty deep. Well, this coach has definitely got tons of storage. And then the last thing that we'll look at is your water. On the Renegades, you've got your freshwater storage is inside the coach. It is underneath your bed. It is two 75-gallon Roldo molded tanks. That's a process of beads that is spun in a mold, and you get a continuous plastic versus seams, so the tanks are a lot more durable. It's the same way they build whitewater kayaks, so it works extremely well. They do it in two 75-gallon tanks to minimize slosh. From here, you can see this clear hose. That is so you can winterize from inside the coach. You can drop that hose into a bucket of antifreeze, flip the valve, and now your water pump is pulling from the bucket. So super easy to winterize. You've got your drain valve down there to drain your freshwater tanks. And of course, an overflow. When you're filling these tanks with fresh water, if they get too full, it just overflows onto the ground. I mean, it's not going to start pressurizing the system or bust anything. And then here, this is a good example of the quality of a Renegade. See the frame structure underneath this bed and the slide mechanism where the bed slides across the top of these rails? Lift up the bed on a lot of your other motorhomes. A lot of times it's a 1/4 inch piece of plywood and that's it. Not even any kind of framing or wood supports. And then the last thing we'll talk about is we'll go up here inside of the cab. So we're looking down at the dash, and of course these chassis are equipped with an air horn lanyard, which is up here above the driver. You've got a city horn in the center of the steering wheel, and then of course this is a touchpad shifter for your Allison transmission. Listen carefully because this gets confused all the time. On the Renegade Valencia, the transmission is standard in economy mode. When you push the mode button and mode is displayed here, That means you have now switched to performance mode. That means the transmission shifts 200 RPM later, which means that your engine is creating more horsepower before the shift, but that does burn a little bit more fuel. Driving down the road, for like from here to Texas, you're probably talking 0.2 on the mile per gallon. That's just me spitballing like a number and some field testing I've done on my own. That gets confused because on the Renegade Verona and the Verona LE with the touchpad here, when you hit the mode button, that transmission is not standard in economy mode, it's standard in performance. So then when you hit the mode button, you're shifting it into economy mode and out of performance. So once again, Valencia standard economy, when you push the mode button, it puts it into performance mode, which means it shifts 200 RPM later. Of course, you've got your power windows. This is your exhaust brake, door locks, parking brake, equalizer control for your leveling jacks, which is also built into the Firefly system. Your parked regen, this is something you probably will never use. This is something we can talk more about in person. Heated mirrors. You have a dump valve now on Valencia so that you can dump the air before you try to level. All automobiles, for aerodynamic purposes, the nose is lower than the back end, to cut through the air. And so by dumping the air first, so this is a vehicle pointed downhill for aerodynamics. When you dump the air in the rear, it brings that down closer to level, which means that the front end has to be lifted less to make the coach level. So that's depending on your sight, and you'll learn quickly. Depending on how your sight lays, you may see that this is something you want to use or don't use. If the sight is already high in the front, let's see, high in the front, and you dump the air, right. So if your front end's already high in the air, you wouldn't want to dump your rear air suspension. You'll figure it out real quick. You just got to use it a few times. Of course, 12-volt power, HVAC controls, cup holders, your navigation and radio. Super awesome. This is a Garmin unit that detaches so that the person sitting in the passenger seat can take off and not have to be hunched over the dash. Can change radio volume, input navigation demands or commands. And then this is your trailer switch. That's what allows you to switch the trailer camera from the truck to the trailer, or vice versa for those that may put a camera on the back of a trailer or even inside of a trailer sometimes. People that are hauling around horses or high dollar cars or stuff of that nature. And then of course you've got docking lights, which switches here, and then this fusion is for the 3.5 and the USB for the radio, so that you can hook up your cell phone or an audio input or connect via USB to the radio unit. We'll kind of shift over here. Down here at the bottom, this pedal in the middle right there, that is for your tilt and telescoping steering wheel. You push that in and you can adjust your steering wheel, your brake pedal, your accelerator. There's your brake control box. So if you are towing a trailer with electric brakes, you can adjust the sensitivity so it's not pushing you or you're not dragging it. You've got power adjust mirrors on your flat glass only. So your top mirror over here. Up top here, you've got your headlights and marker lights, increase, decrease the gauge cluster brightness, speed control for speed control, and then like your cruise control, and then resume and excel, and then your set and coast switch down here, which is a toggle switch, momentary up and down. Of course, your blinkers and then washer fluid type stuff is all right there on that column. And then you just got your gauge clusters, which shows your just all your normal car stuff or truck stuff. The one thing I will mention is you've got some engine lights, any lights that come on that are yellow. So keep in mind, there's on a truck today with all the electronics that are required to meet emissions, there's over 200 operations going on per second across the computers and the different control modules on the chassis. They can get glitchy. They could get battery issues, like if older batteries can cause some glitches. So there's a lot of codes out there that are just informative or maybe only momentary. So anytime a yellow light comes on, it's like, hey, something's up, kind of be on alert. Do you hear, see, feel anything different about the coach? If not and everything's driving fine, that doesn't mean pull over on the side of the road and call a wrecker. That doesn't mean you have to immediately go to a dealership. It's just, be aware. And if, codes have the ability to self-heal. So, after so many key cycles, that code just might go away. And then if you go to a dealership and tell them I had a light that came on that went off, you're going to spend a bunch of money for something that they can't duplicate. Now, on the flip side, if you get a warning light that comes on as red, those are only associated to catastrophic engine failures. So a perfect simple example of that is you blow a radiator hose, you start dumping all your coolant, blow your motor up. Well, that's going to cause a red engine light, which also derate the motor. And that literally, if it's red, you need to pull over as fast as possible as long as it's safe, because you potentially are going to do a lot of damage to your motorhome. So that explains lights, and that's something I can also go into far greater detail in person, or a phone call or whatever. Once again, my name's Kyle Coberline. I'm a truck and RV sales professional at Bluegrass International Trucks, Buses, RVs, and Ideal Lease. I appreciate you checking another one of my videos. My videos get a little long, but I think there's a niche for my videos. I think the people that really want to get in depth and hear as much as possible and learn as much as possible, my videos are good for that. So everybody that appreciates these, I appreciate you for checking them out and taking the time to watch. And if there's ever anything I can do, I'm happy to help. It doesn't have to just be to sell you a motorhome or a commercial truck, depending on what business you're in. I'm happy to help, and then if we end up doing some business together, that's great. We'll build a long-term relationship. Hi, it's Kyle Coberline, a truck and RV sales professional at Bluegrass International Trucks, Buses, RVs, and Ideal Lease. Today, I want to talk about who we are. I'm a very small piece of the puzzle here at Bluegrass International, and I'm proud to say I work with some of the finest people in the industry. So I just want to kind of do a quick overview and just kind of show you, what people make up our dealership. So here, check this out.